Good evening, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressick. This is your other host,
Christina Fasonic. How's it going, Damien?
I'm excited today for a couple of reasons. One, I'm excited about our reader. We've got a terrific new reader, and as somebody I met at the Mountain Heritage Literary Festival, and this was at Lincoln Memorial University right on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, and I had a chance to take a look at her work there, and it's really really good. So I'm excited to bring Sarah Strickley to our audience, and also and we'll talk about her in just a second. I'm also excited. I was reading a magazine today that comes out of Carnegie Mellon University, and I happen to see. Are you familiar with this, Christina? Christina, you look perplexed.
There's some kind of playback. Can you hear like a double playback?
I do not.
I can hear you twice, and one of you is delayed.
Well, how about if I jump off and you tell people about this magazine from Carnegie Mellon University?
I will. I'll see you in just 1 second. While Damien is gone, I wanted to fill everybody in today. Thanks to Ed Simon, who is the editor of Belt Magazine. We had a new article here in Belt, and it's called A Northern Appalachia Story. And it covers Northern Appalachian literature from indigenous voices all the way to the present. And if you have a chance to read it, see it, we strongly recommend it. I'm going to bring Damien back up.
Hello.
We're still having weird playback. Can you hear it at all?
I cannot.
Well, I'm going to disappear and allow you to go on about this business and see if I can figure it out, okay?
Okay. So tonight we've got Sarah Anne Strickley. She is the author of 3 books of prose, the short story collection Incendiary Devices from Tolsun Books, 2023, the novella Sister from Summer Camp Publishing, and the short story collection Fall Together from Goldwake Press. She teaches at the University of Louisville and is the editor of Miracle Monocle. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks so much for making time to be on. I know at the beginning of the semester, people are busy, so we really appreciate you coming on. You also I will sort of throw a little plug in here. If you ever have a chance to take a workshop with Sarah Strickley, do yourself a favor and take that workshop. She's a wonderful teacher.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to disappear and let you do some reading.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm going to read a little bit from my latest collection, which is called Incendiary Devices. And given that we're approaching the spooky season, I thought I'd go for something a little on the dark side. So I hope you're up for that. This story, and I'm just going to read the opening of it, is called Dismember Me, Baby. They'd moved into the new apartment 3 months ago, and while Caroline's manic unpacking energy had served her well, she was all set up, satisfyingly smooth organizational systems in place. Bill's items remained largely packed. He'd been digging for underwear in a series of overstretched trash bags that morning as they hurried to dress for work, and she decided to use her afternoon off to organize a large window seat storage compartment for him. Maybe it wasn't the ideal place to store clothes. The lid was heavy and it was topped by a tufted cushion the previous tenants had left behind, but he didn't bring a dresser into the equation. In fact, when it came down to it, his contributions to the newly melded household were few and largely entertainment related. He had a massive television, surround sound speakers, and a collection of hundreds of horror films on DVD, all arranged in binders according to schemas that shifted in his head on a near constant basis. He also had roughly 50 pint glasses emblazoned with beer logos. Beyond that, it was heaps of unwashed laundry and a California King mattress set that wouldn't fit up the stairs and was presently wedged in the downstairs foyer with a free, no bugs sign affixed to it with packing tape. She took the added step of laundering the clothing that seemed to be in frequent rotation. They had a newish stackable unit in the hall closet, a total boon for the neighborhood, which was firmly transitional. And she folded his shirts, pants, shorts, and underwear into tidy collapsible storage boxes that she'd purchased specifically for this purpose on the way home from the office. He didn't ask her to do any of this, of course, but he didn't have to. They were cohabiting now. It was part of the deal. When he arrived home from work, she was following a complicated recipe for a red curry and forgot to orchestrate the grand reveal that she'd imagined in her head. Look what I did for you. Aren't I the best girlfriend? She heard a door slam, his keys hit the bowl, and then he was behind her at the stove. What'd you do with all my shit? He asked. There was an edge to his voice that she hadn't expected, but perhaps it was understandable given the sudden, unexplained disappearance of the bags that had become like fixtures themselves, some bearing the odd, leaning lamp or an alarm clock in a corner in place of the furniture they planned to select together soon. Perhaps she should have warned him rather than surprising him. Oh, wait till you see, she said. She slurped the wooden spoon, made a yum face, and turned down the burner. You're going to love it. His face revealed no interest in what the surprise might be. He looked instead as furious as she'd ever seen him, but she went ahead anyway. Adopting the tone and tenor of a tour guide, she beckoned him to follow her into the bedroom and flicked on the lights as they passed through the hall. Right this way, sir, she said, gesturing with a flourish. Let me show you to your brand new, top-of-the-line accommodations. In the bedroom, a space made now startlingly spacious due to the banishment of upward of 12 bags and various mounds, she walked into the window and opened the lid. What is this? He asked. She pointed out the baskets she'd set up for his socks, the transparent plastic storage bin she'd established for his pens, cords, and odds and ends. Once I cleaned this out, I realized it was quite a large space, she said, much bigger than I realized when we signed the lease. It was the perfect place for all your things until we get bedroom furniture, Or maybe we don't even need more bedroom furniture, Now she was thinking aloud, musing about the ways in which they might spend the money they had always planned to spend on a dresser for him and matching bedside tables on a nice couch instead. An adult couch. Wouldn't that be nice? Maybe it could be gold or blue. She knew he liked blue couches because he'd said so once while they were watching an episode of Friends. He finally released a sigh. It is quite large, he said, peering into the storage space. Maybe we should cut you into pieces and stuff you in there. She wasn't sure she'd heard him right, but she had. He made a comment about dismembering her and shoving her into a storage space she spent her afternoon meticulously organizing for him. She could laugh it off. She was well within the pre-authorized window for laughing it off. You silly, she might say, and then move swiftly past the moment. Well, what do you think? Would you like to try the curry I made? But she didn't. Okay, she said. We could try that, I guess. You could dismember me, baby. She saw the confidence in his eyes shift a little. He'd expected to knock her off her tracks, but she'd found another track and had simply kept on rolling. You'd have to buy some supplies, though, because I've been through all your shit and you don't have what it takes. He shoved his fists into the pockets of his khaki pants and leaned back on the heels of his leather work shoes. I know where the hardware store is from here. I could take the train, spend $20, and have what I need to put you in that drawer on a permanent basis, he said. She laughed. You never know what anything costs because you make me do all of the shopping. A decent saw alone would cost $40. Also, it's not a drawer. It's a window seat, you doof. She shut the lid. Fine, he said. I can't wait to cut off your head with my shiny $40 saw. He stalked to the front of the apartment and grabbed his keys from the bowl. Do we need anything else while I'm out? She surprised herself by yelling across the apartment that he should probably buy himself some dinner because she sure as hell wasn't sharing the curry now that it was her last meal. And since she would never be cooking for him again, seeing as she'd be dead and disfigured within the hour, he ought to pick up a few microwavable meals to tide him through the aftermath of her demise. Okay, then, he said. He slammed the door behind him. She allowed herself a moment to stand in the bedroom and admire the lives they might have had together. Perhaps if she hadn't organized the window seat for him, they might have spent many lovely years together in this practical yet pricey flat before marrying and settling down in a nearby neighborhood with a small yard. Perhaps they might have lived happily ever after. She knew better, though. He'd revealed himself too early. That was his mistake. If he'd waited until they had kids and she'd quit her job, she might have been trapped. But now she could leave him and lose nothing but her ideas about what might have been. She had to get out of the apartment before he returned. She couldn't risk him passing him on the sidewalk and having to navigate her way beyond his explanations. He was only joking. Couldn't she see that? He had no intention of buying equipment to murder her from the hardware store, of course. He was only standing in the alley and smoking a forbidden cigarette while he cleared his head. He didn't like people meddling in his business. That was all. Didn't he tell her that story about his parents finding his weed in dirty magazines in high school? It had scarred him. He didn't know why he'd said what he'd said about cutting her up. He'd surprised even himself with that talk. Surely she could forgive him if she tried. Couldn't she try? Would she? It made her sad to leave the careful objects she'd accumulated as a young adult, the trappings of a real life, the hand-blown glass globes hanging in the front window from transparent cords, the antique china set she'd taken from an aunt. It had been her grandmother's, and every piece was rimmed with an unmicrowavable gold. She thought weirdly of the vibrator under her pillow on the bed. It had taken her so long to work up the gumption to purchase such an item, and then she'd had to obliterate her fear that he might reject her request that he use it in just such a way. But of course she couldn't use it again now. It was tainted. Her suitcases were all so tiny because they'd been given to her as a teenager, but she recalled that she'd stuffed all of the used plastic bags she'd emptied of his things earlier that day under the kitchen sink. She filled a few with clothes, grabbed her purse, her laptop, a few toiletries, turned off the stove, and left. So that's all I'll read for now, but pick up the book if you'd like to find out what happens to these two.
Oh man, I want to know. I want to know. I really love this story because I feel like obviously it's this extended metaphor for what it's like to live with another person. And I love the sort of and now that we're cohabitating and like those expectations and how just doing something that you feel like the other person might like or might benefit from, how that can blow up in your face when you're living with someone else. And I really love the writing and how you really lead us along this path, and you wait in anticipation for him to say, I'm just joking. And I was thinking as he was walking, towards the door, oh, he's just going to walk out on the stoop or in the hall and come right back in. But he doesn't. And of course she has to leave. But I think honestly, as soon as he said, where's all my shit? That was the end of it. That was like the moment where she was like, I'm out, I'm done. No matter what he said after that, that was the watershed moment for her.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, to be honest, in writing the story, I didn't know what he would do or what she would do. It started as a piece of flash, and it kept expanding from there. And by the end of it, it covers her entire life.
Oh, wow. And, I love that about going with the process of writing. And you're like, well, who's this? Suddenly a character appears that you weren't expecting, or you're writing along and going, I had no idea. And it's your character. You develop a character, and yet you learn this new thing. And it's like a thrilling thing writing. I mean, as much as it's frustrating at times, it's still magic somehow.
Yeah. I love those unexpected surprises. And living with a writer, as I do, and we often write in the summer at different floors of the house. I kept saying, kept popping out of nowhere and saying, "It's still going. The story's still going. I'm still writing."
That's awesome. I love that. So it's like almost like a magician's scarf where you just keep pulling and
Yes.
pulling, and it's like, oh, there's a yellow one and a blue one,
Mhm.
and that I love that. That's exciting,
Mhm.
and that comes out in the reading of this as well, where we're coming along with you and pulling that same scarf. So that was such a pleasure to listen to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are a literary badass.
Thank you. Can I get that a T-shirt?
Yes.
We should maybe we could do that for the show. The literary
That would
badass.
be awesome. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
It reminded me, I really like your work. It reminded me a lot initially of Richard Yates, the Richard Yates story, "The Best of Everything," where you have the
Oh,
couple who are moving, and they're any they're very the POV is uh, delivered, and they're both in the same space, but perceiving it radically differently. And then
mhm.
like I love that wild turn toward, and it's that what I mean. I yeah. What'd you do with all my shit was interesting, but then it's like the line about dismemberment. It's like all of a sudden we've walked out of the world of Richard Yates and walked through this imperceptible door somehow into American Psycho.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a second. And I love that it doesn't go that way yet.
Mhm.
If it does ever
Yeah.
go that way, but it's like, oh wait, that we're not going to actually this is, at least I suspect this is probably not going to turn into a story about actual
Right.
dismemberment. Um, yeah, I love that. It felt deliciously true to life. Good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, and this is something I talk to my students about. Sometimes stories come in flashes of imagery or just a concept. And so this one was just realizing a window in our house was a window seat, you know, and opening it up and realizing it was quite large, and then imagining a story around that realization. Oh, this is quite large. What could you put in here? And then it's me, so it went in a dark direction. But um, you
Watch
know,
out for dinner parties at the Strickleys.
that's right. Stay away from the window seats. Yeah, so just being open to those moments and making sure to have contact with the page so that those moments don't slip away and dissipate, I think is a lot of the thing for me, because you can have a lot of ideas and not know if they have wheels, but
Oh,
some of the more exciting stories happen. You might have a sense of what the arc might be, but then putting the scenes together leads you in a surprising direction for you. So it doesn't always happen that way where things unfold in a way that surprises me. But I think if I'm being open and listening to the story, it's more likely to happen that way in the writing process.
and I think the cool thing about that is in those moments when it does happen that way, you feel like you're the creator, but you're also a bystander to
Mhm.
that creation as well. Like it's a strange place to be where you're the one putting the words on the page, but you also feel like you're watching
Well, you're a
this
conduit.
happen. At this, what's that, Damien?
You're a conduit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it can be difficult to just get out of the way when that happens. So
Yes.
you may have desires and specific ambitions for the story and things you want it to do. And certainly you can follow a path that leads you nowhere, into the woods. But sort of maintaining release of control and control throughout the writing process. You want to create a character who, has a certain set of characteristics that are engaging to readers and are engaging to your imagination. But then you also have to just let them be, and see what the conditions of the storytelling might bring out of them. So that's the perfect nexus that happens not all the time, but sometimes between plot and character when one is revealing the other, that puts you in this space of not knowing yet, which is a really can be terrifying place to be, but is an exciting one.
And I mean, obviously this could have gone anyway, million different ways. When he walked in and he said what he said, "What'd you do with all my shit?" And then they go in and they look, and she's like, "Behold, this is what I did." I mean, he could have easily said, "Oh, thank you," but we
Right.
knew he wasn't going to say
Yeah.
that. But I don't think anybody guessed that he was going to say, "Well, we could, put your dismembered body in there." Um,
Right.
I think people probably could have thought, I can't believe you would do this to me. This was an invasion of my privacy, and
Right.
I want you to put my stuff back where it was. And how dare you control me or my life or whatever? But I don't think anybody thought, and maybe I'll just cut you up and put you in the, you know, that is like a boss move, as Damien said. So, or a badass move, excuse me.
Yeah.
So you do have some people that are watching, and this is what they've had to say. Amy Dotson gives you a smiley,
Oh, thanks, Amy.
which is always good. And then Bonnie Proudfoot, who is a regular
Oh,
watcher of the show. Do you know Bonnie?
yeah, back from old Athens, Ohio days.
Yes, she and I were students actually there at the same time in the doctoral program. Were you there then?
I did my undergrad and an MA there.
Very cool. So
Mhm.
Bonnie says, I enjoyed the inner voice that the reader overhears.
Mhm. Thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, it was a pleasure creating that scenario where we're very close to her POV, but I think that I have enough distance there where you could be a little critical of her and
Yeah.
her choices in the storytelling. And increasingly so as I sort of ratchet up the stakes of the plot as the storytelling goes on, you might question her belief as you go through. And you have to wait and see if the events of the plot bear that out or not.
Well, and I kept wondering, did she have some kind of motivation other than kindness for the things that she was doing? I did start to wonder that. And so that was really good because we could have all been super sympathetic, I think, to her. Like, she did all these things and she made dinner, and all she wanted was, appreciation for having done these things. But was there some type of motive on her behalf, or why did she do that? Or had he told her, don't touch my stuff, and she did
Mhm.
it anyway? And so I love that when a story makes me question what's happening rather than just blindly follow it.
I also really thought you did a great job of rendering the mundane details of moving
Mhm.
in such a way that that kind of setting for the story was really well established. So a place for the story to unfold, that manic energy of unpacking. And as somebody who has actually had a couch stuck on a staircase,
Yeah,
um, that
I
really
think we've all been there.
Or we've helped somebody
Yeah,
move and got
so
their couch
yeah.
stuck on the staircase.
Mhm.
So,
well, thank you so much.
wait a minute. Yeah, show us your book, and
Oh,
tell
yeah,
us a
of
little more
course.
about it.
Yeah, I love the cover of this one. And
Oh, it's
it's
beautiful.
it's been funny to be at events and have people ask, "Is that you?" I know, I
Yes,
didn't model.
strictly mother and dragons the unburned.
Right, I wasn't literally on fire. So
So
don't
what
worry.
we did was, first they lit up the background, and then they had me step in. I love it. That's a great cover.
Yeah, I love it. I've been really happy with my experience with this book.
It's
Perfect title as well.
wonderful.
Yeah,
And we hope that you'll go out and get this book and read the rest of it. I know I'm going to do that because I can't wait to find out what happens to these people. And at this point, we kind of want to root for her because we don't want her to die or anything.
right.
But at the same time, we want to find out what's going on with this dude. So, anyways, thank you again for being on the
Thank
show,
you so much for
and
having me.
have a great evening and a good semester.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
All right, thanks a
Good
lot,
night,
y'all.
everybody.